Stage 2 load shedding will be back again at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. And Eskom has said load shedding will be reduced to stage 1 tonight, however. Eskom teams have returned generation units at the Kriel and Grootvlei and Duva power stations, but the system remains constrained. Eskom has also said that COVID-19 has had an impact on operations, with contractors testing positive and unable to report for duty. Eskom spokesperson Sikhonathi Mantshantsha joins us now. Mr. Mantshantsha, thank you very much for your time. I think that intro almost captures what the problems are. You've returned most of these units. What seems to be the problem now?
Thank you for having us on your show, Claudie. We reported last week to the people of South Africa that 2 generation units at the Kusile power station were not able to receive coal and therefore out of service due to a conveyor belt, to 2 conveyor belts that actually needed repairs. We are returning those tomorrow. They should have been back in service this afternoon. However, restarting it has proven a little more difficult. Therefore, they are coming back tomorrow. But they come in addition to that 13,000 megawatts of capacity that is out on unplanned, on breakdowns. So those will be returned into service over the coming days. We will therefore carry on with stage 2 load shedding tomorrow, and then come back to the people and let them know how the rest of the week will look like.
Yeah, so right now we don't know where things stand as far as load shedding for the week ahead is concerned, because you yourselves are not certain about the reliability of these power stations.
Yes, indeed, we are making a fuller statement tomorrow to give a fuller picture about the rest of the week. A lot depends again on the successful return of those 2 generation units at the Kusile power station. And as I have said earlier, Tony, those will be, we will then be able in the afternoon to tell the people how the situation will be looking like for the rest of the week. That is because, as we have said, the risk remains elevated of load shedding throughout this period. But we would rather have the certainty that we have these 2 units coming tomorrow as promised, and then we can speak with authority on the next week or so.
Yeah. Mr. Mantshantsha, I think Kusile may have also been a problem. You'll correct me if I'm wrong, that 1 or 2 units there had also fallen off. This is a new power station. What seems to be the problem?
The power station, Kusile, indeed is what we spoke about. And last week, we lost 2 conveyor belts that feed coal into the whole power station. They tripped while the teams were busy repairing the one that had tripped earlier in the week. The second one tripped. So you have those problems. If you remember, we have had issues with a conveyor belt at the Medupi power station, which is a copy of Kusile. So those are the issues we have. You have one big conveyor belt, which obviously has a backup, feeding coal into all 6 units. Whereas in the older power stations, you have a conveyor belt feeding coal to a generation unit. So you would have about 6 conveyor belts going into the power station, instead of just one big conveyor belt.
Kusile and Medupi, Mr. Mantshantsha, as you rightly say, they are part of the new build of South Africa's power stations, but they just seem to experience 1 or 2 problems, and it's an ongoing process. Will there ever be a time when all of these teething issues, because I think they've gone beyond being teething problems now, something was done wrong at these power stations, and I think that's been admitted by the Minister of Public Enterprises. But at which point should South Africans start demanding that these power stations do not trip every now and then because they are part of the new fleet?
Oli, that is a great question. Eskom has said the design defects, that's something wrong that you are talking about. When the stations were designed, some defects did occur, and Eskom has said throughout the past year that we are repairing the design defects. I am pleased to inform the people of South Africa that these repairs to the defects started at the Medupi power station, where now 4 generation units have undergone these repairs and are performing at full capacity since these repairs have occurred. And we have said to the people, we will finish these 2 at the Medupi power station and move on to start doing exactly the same at the Kusile power station, starting in the first quarter of this year. So by the end of March 2022, you will have all the generation units delivering at full capacity at Medupi, having undergone these repairs to correct the defects that you have just spoken about. And the same done at the Kusile power station, where we will then, after those have been conducted, we will then have a reliable 8,600 megawatts coming out of those new power stations.
Mr. Mantshantsha, then of course, you'll correct me again if I'm wrong or if my memory is not recollecting these statements correctly. The CEO of Eskom, Andre Direte, at some point did mention that in 2022, not sure if it's the first quarter or second quarter, we South Africans might be lucky enough to see the back of load shedding. Are we still on course to meet that?
We are still on course to significantly reduce, let's be clear here, to significantly reduce the risk and occurrence of load shedding, starting in the later part of this year when the reliability maintenance on the old power stations has been completed. And indeed, much of the work I spoke about earlier on the 2 power stations of Medupi and Kusile. Here's one thing I have to also tell you. You can do all the maintenance that you can do on this old power station whose average age is 39 years and they have a design life of about 50 years. So they are not as reliable as they should be. We will do all of this maintenance and it will significantly reduce the risk of load shedding. However, the reality is that we cannot eliminate load shedding without adding any new capacity onto the system. That is where we are.
And how many of these old power stations that need to completely be decommissioned?
There's about 8,000 megawatts of power stations that are too old to generate any electricity and are not generating electricity. However, they are still classified as part of the installed capacity. So out of the 45,000 installed total capacity of Eskom, you can comfortably take out 8,000. That leaves you with about 37,000 of capacity that we can work with. And it is that capacity that I am telling you will not be able to totally eliminate load shedding without you adding any new capacity to cater for growth in the economy and indeed to make sure that you are able to have equipment that will undergo good refurbishment while you are generating without load shedding.
That new capacity, Mr. Mantshantsha, briefly, the understanding is that it would come about as a result of independent power producers. Where is that process?
The government has already made pronouncement and started a process to procure 11,800 megawatts of capacity over the next 10 years, which Eskom welcomes with both arms. However, we do say that we need more than that, because that 11,000 only replaces the aging capacity that I have just spoken about, the 8,000. To power a growing economy, you need continuous investments in new generation capacity. So we have the processes that the government has indeed put into place to add 11,800 megawatts over the next 10 years. And 2,000 megawatts of those, the government has said, is urgent and needs to be procured over the next 2 to 3 years. That is where the process is at the moment, Tony.
Sikhonathi Mantshantsha speaks for Power Utility Eskom. Thank you very much for your time.